Hey guys, welcome back to The Ride of a Lifetime. If this is your first time here, my name is Jeremiah, and in today's video, we are going to talk about why the Rebel 1100 isn't a good beginner bike. So a couple months ago, I made a video talking about why the Rebel 1100 is a good beginner bike. And that actually got quite a bit of response from you guys. And so I decided in today's video, I'm gonna flip that around and talk about why it isn't a good beginner bike. So just as a disclaimer, just letting you guys know up front that this was my beginner bike. So this was the first bike I had ever gotten. So everything that you will hear in this video is from a beginner's perspective. So I just wanted to let you guys know that right off the bat. But on to my first point of why I think the Rebel 1100 isn't a good beginner bike is the price. And the reason why I say that is because $11,000 out the door is quite a bit of money for a lot of people. But that is quite a bit of money to invest into something that you might end up crashing, dropping, or whatever it is. But the reason why I pulled the trigger on the Rebel 1100 is because what I didn't want to have happen is in a couple months, upgrade and regret that I got maybe the 300 or the 500 of the Rebel. I didn't want to, buy the Rebel 300 and then 4 months down the road or 3 months down the road be like, oh, okay, that wasn't enough power for me. And also, just to put this in perspective for you guys, is I am a bigger rider, so I am about 5'11", 290 pounds. So that lets you guys know that, what I did want to have happen is, it not being able to carry my weight and be able to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to go on long distance trips and do that kind of thing, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get that done with the 300 or the 500. But that's not to say that the 300 or the 500 is a bad bike. I don't think it is a bad bike. If you're looking for something to just kind of dip your toes into the motorcycle world and, see if that's something you want to pursue, those bikes are priced very well. So with that being said, that's a good thing. But the Rebel 300 and 500 is a really good introduction to, kind of dip your toes in and see if it's something you actually want to pursue. But $11,000 is quite a lot of money for something that you may, drop or crash, and, that's not good at all. Nobody wants to have that. But that's one of the reasons why I think that this isn't a good beginner bike. It's just the price. But the second reason why I think the Rebel 1100 isn't a good beginner bike is because of the power. There is quite a lot of power at your fingertips, and if you're not careful or disciplined enough to, not be dumb with it, not be stupid, then I think you'll be good. But there are a lot of people, for example, my girlfriend wants to start riding, and I wouldn't put her on a Rebel 1100 because I think that she would, either whiskey throttle it or whatever. So some people, their hand-eye coordination is a little bit, better, and I'm not saying that hers is bad, but I wouldn't put her on this bike comfortably and being like, oh, she'll be fine. And for me, the other riding modes definitely help break me into this bike, which is a good reason to get the Rebel 1100. And that's one of the positives, is the other riding modes. And if you haven't seen the other video that I've made talking about why the Rebel 1100 is a good beginner bike, I will put it right above my head right now, so you guys can click on that and watch the positives of why I think this is a good beginner bike. But for me, when I drove this off the lot, it was nerve-wracking and scary. I spent probably about 10 minutes in the parking lot getting used to the friction zone and the clutch. And I know that they have a DCT model, which is automatic, dual clutch transmission, if you guys don't know what that is. They have two different versions of the Rebel 1100, which is the DCT and the manual. But I have the manual. But I spent about 10-15 minutes or whatever in the parking lot just kind of getting myself comfortable and used to the bike. And I will say that with every bike, it's a little different because everybody's clutch, because everybody's friction zone is a little bit different than the other. From the bike that I had at the MSF course to this one, it was completely different. With this one, my friction zone is about here. But with the bike that I had at the MSF course, it was like here. It was very, very small. It was a very small window of where the friction zone was. And I will say that this isn't a bike that you're going to take directly right off the lot if you're a beginner and go, 60 down some back roads. I wouldn't recommend that for anybody, You want to be careful and you want to grow with your bike. You want to get used to it and used to what it can do and what it can't do. But I know I can't lean into corners like a sports bike would. So you have your limitations, but you should always be constantly learning and pushing yourself to learn new things and do different things. But the third reason why I think this bike isn't a good beginner bike is the technology. And it's one of the positives as well, but it's also one of the negatives. And the reason why I say that is because there are different riding modes. So when I left the dealership, I had it in rain mode and got used to the small amount of power that the bike was actually giving me, because it kind of steps you up in power as you go along. But that's one of the positives. But one of the negatives of that is it also, you know, what this bike also has is cruise control. It has ABS. It's got all the bells and whistles that you would want in a modern day bike. But when you go and try out another bike that maybe doesn't have that, which I've had the pleasure of riding a couple of my other buddies' bikes, and they don't have ABS, they don't have cruise control. So it's definitely something weird for you to get used to, because if you're in a corner and you're used to having, oh, hi little deer, hey deer. But if you're in a corner and you're used to having ABS and it doesn't kick in because you're so used to it being there, then that's going to get you into some trouble. You know, you may high side, you may low side, whatever it is, because you're in your brain, you're already like, okay, I know I can lean this much and have the traction control turn on and everything. And I know a lot of modern day bikes have ABS, so I'm not saying that you can't, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but it is different when you go from something that you're used to something that you're really not used to, you know, and having that ABS and the traction control that you're so used to. But yeah, guys, those are the reasons why I think this isn't a good beginner bike. But like I said, this was my beginner bike, so don't be discouraged if you're looking at this, you know, and this is the bike that you're looking to start out on. That's what I did, and I don't blame you at all. But I hope this helps you guys see a different perspective of, you know, why somebody would say that this isn't a good beginner bike. Because I got a lot of comments on that video that I made a couple months ago talking about why the Rebel 1100, you know, is a good beginner bike. And a lot of people were like, you know, that's not actually a good beginner bike. I wouldn't recommend that to, you know, somebody that's first starting out. And I could see that side, and I could also see the side of why it is a good beginner bike. So, but I hope this helps with your decision. And like I said, I won't blame you if this is the bike that you end up getting. But anyway, thank you guys for sticking around and watching till the end of the video. If you like this type of video, please let me know by liking it down below and commenting. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And while you're down there, if you want to subscribe to The Ride of a Lifetime, I'd greatly appreciate it, and I'd love to have you guys here. But I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will catch you guys in the next ride. Peace.